Now, if you're a coach who has cap size and has a limit and doesn't have as many spots, but I know I don't have to pay for this kid because they're smart. Mm-hmm. They're going to go to school. They're going to get a lot of academic money. And guess what? Now your recruitment went up. So even if I had 2 kids that were 6'4", but this kid is going to get some academic money and this kid needs all of my athletic budget, guess who they're going to go with?
And if I got to worry about you being academically eligible. And that's a message for these high school kids, because I've seen it. I've seen a kid this past season that didn't get nearly the playing time that he anticipated getting because his coach was like, your grades aren't where they need to be. I can't play you the same way because I have to worry about your overall development. If I'm just worrying about wins, you're going to start full time. But if I'm worrying about you being able to get to college and play at that next level, I got to let the bench teach you a lesson that I can't tell you.
Welcome to Beyond the Game, where mental wellness competes. I'm your host, Philip Reynolds, licensed clinical social worker, LCSW. I spent over 2 decades working in mental and behavioral health, sitting with families, athletes, and young people in some of the hardest moments of their lives. Over time, one pattern became impossible to ignore. The athletes who looked the strongest on the outside were often carrying the heaviest pressure on the inside. I kept meeting high performers who knew how to train their bodies, knew how to push through pain, knew how to fight for a starting spot or a scholarship, but no one had ever taught them how to process loss, identity shifts, injury, burnout, or the silence that comes when their playing careers end. That gap is what led me to create Copious Life Sports Initiative, or CLSI. Our mission is to close what we call the resilience gap. That is the space between pushing through and breaking down, where too many athletes get stranded. This podcast exists because the conversation around athlete mental health needs more than headlines. It needs stories, real stories from athletes who lived it, coaches who saw it, parents who felt it, journalists who covered it, professionals working to change the system. Because athletes are not just performers, they're people. Here, we talk about the pressure behind the performance, the identity behind the jersey, the silence behind the success. My hope is that every episode helps athletes feel less alone, helps families feel more equipped, helps coaches and leaders rethink what it really means to support the whole athlete. This is Beyond the Game, and I'm really glad you're here.
Welcome to our episode of CLSI Beyond the Game podcast. I'm excited to have with us today Shanay Howard, who brings a powerful and much needed perspective to Beyond the Game, operating at the intersection of athletics, education, identity, and long-term athlete development. As a former D1 athlete, licensed school counselor, educational consultant, and founder of Shanay Howard Consulting, Shanay has spent more than 15 years helping student athletes and families navigate the realities of academics, recruiting, NCAA eligibility, and life beyond sports. Through her work, she's helped thousands of students pursue scholarship opportunities while emphasizing that true success is built on more than talent alone. What makes Shanay's voice especially important is her holistic approach to athlete development. In an era dominated by rankings, NIL, transfer portals, and social media pressure, she consistently challenges athletes and families to think beyond short-term exposure and focus on identity, education, character, and long-term growth. Her work with Team Durant AAU and Nike EYBL has placed her directly inside some of the highest pressure youth basketball environments in the country, giving her firsthand insight into what young athletes are facing behind the scenes. But beyond recruiting and scholarship conversations, Shanay is deeply passionate about helping athletes understand who they are outside of sports. Her perspective challenges the culture of performance-only thinking that reminds athletes, parents, and coaches alike that development is about the whole person, not just the outcome. This conversation goes beyond recruiting. It's about pressure, purpose, identity, and what it truly means to prepare young athletes for life, not just the next level. Happy to have you with us today, Shanay. How are you?
I'm good. Happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm so glad. So we met probably 3 to 4 years ago. We met at a Made Hoops event, and I had the opportunity to hear you speak there. And I was like, man, I got to get to know her. So we broke bread
Yep.
over lunch and had some conversations. And obviously, when doing this, it was the right time to kind of hit you up and say, let's have one of those conversations on the podcast. And so, really excited to have you with us. And where we start with most of our guests, let's start at the beginning. Kind of tell me your story. What drew you into this work?
Yeah, I'm one of 5 children. I am a twin, number one. I'm a twin. There isn't another one of me, but she's different. The polar opposite, as they say. Twins are usually. We are fraternal, but we started in sports in school. You know, our parents put us in everything, swimming, you name it. But I started playing basketball at 12 years old, almost 13, at a program called Positive Direction in Queens. And I didn't know the game at all. But this one lady, Joanne Arbitella Pennock, believed in me so much that she pushed me into this game. I was still heavily into my academics, heavy into music, and my mom just was like, hey, try it out. Turns out I was quite good at it. So, I went to high school. I went to extremely academic school, so that didn't change. But it turned out I was a great player, ended up doing a lot for them, scoring over 1,600 points in high school. Wow. Because I was one of the only players that was there for that. I was academics and I could play. Right. But I played in one of the top divisions in school. I ended up being one, Queens Player of the Year, one of the top scorers in New York City in my class. And it was a wonderful experience doing that. From that, I went on to college to get a Division I scholarship playing basketball at Fairleigh Dickinson University in Jersey. Played 4 years there. Starter, Casita All-American, you name it. And around my sophomore year, I heard of this thing called SAC, Student Athlete Advisory Committee, and it's where I got to represent the whole conference for Division I. And so my conference was the NEC, and we had, other conferences, and you had to basically get voted into this position. I end up doing it and get to represent the whole conference. And I started spending parts of my summer and semester at the NCAA offices. And then I started figuring out, oh, there's so much that goes into this. And this is how I fell into it, right? There was so much. I was like, there's a lot. Before they was getting paid, NIL, I learned like, wow, we have budgets like this. Right. Even how we flew in, right? How Division I athletes flew in for SAC, how D2 flew in, how D3. The budgets were different. And we all were at the same event. And so I fell in love with that. I graduated college, went into the school system as a licensed school counselor, and then realized I had more to offer than just the counseling. I love what I do, counseling, but I knew that I wanted people to understand the process of getting to the next level.
One of the things from our conversations in your talk, I heard you kind of lay out how your mom really helped you become kind of the D1 athlete. And the way I hear it, helped your siblings to become D1 athletes as well. So we're here in the month of, May, which is Mother's Day. So hype up mom. Tell me a little bit about moms and the role she plays.
There's only one Renee Freeman. One thing my mother did was strive for excellence in everything, right? And she said we would all strive for excellence. 5 children, we all went to college, and get this, 3 of us went on sports scholarships. Nice. So, yes, we were blessed to be athletically sound family, but the biggest thing is she had a rule. You're going to go to school, you're going to get good grades, and I'm not paying for college. So we're like, well, we got to figure it out, right? We got to figure it out. And so from coming from New York City and the boroughs, she did things very strategically that set us up for success. Any program we wanted to be a part, a team or anything, it doesn't matter, karate, dancing, we did it all. She said, you can commit and you have to do it for a full year, even if you don't like it. And because of that, it spewed some greatness in us. It spewed commitment in us. And we found out like, this is the stuff we like. Like, I'm the only one that went on a basketball scholarship, but my sister went to school on a bowling scholarship.
Oh, wow.
So like there's like, she collegiately bowled, and she also played softball at Virginia State University. Nice. My younger brother went on a wrestling scholarship. Like, these are very different sports. Like, you wouldn't think. But she opened that door for us and said, look how you're going to get to school and what do you enjoy doing? Right. And these are the things they found, and they do it. My other 2 brothers got scholarships too. So it wasn't athletic, but they got them some way because she had that rule. Right? So we had to figure it out.
Okay. So she set that foundation for success. Whatever it is, whatever you're going to do, you're going to choose to be successful, right? So that became a part of that identity. And so you also talked about the NCAA kind of landscape when you got to peek on the other side of it. And so at what point in time did you kind of really realize these athletes need more support?
It was literally my sophomore year in college. And then I realized I got here by the grace of God because my mother didn't know any of this stuff. I just knew I had great grades and I qualified, right? But I didn't know what went into that. And I knew I was put on a path for that. But then people don't know these intricacies. I know kids that ended up having to go junior college, but if someone had told them, you need to do this, this, and this, they would have been at a Division I school right away. So it was about my sophomore year in college when I realized that, and when I realized, like, how do I get close to the kids? And that's when I decided I was going to be a school counselor.
Okay, nice. That's what's up. And so what pressures do athletes carry that adults underestimate?
So much. I think number one, they're a kid, right? So they carry pressure in general. But I think they carry the pressure of being perfect.
Right.
And they want to, and the other unspoken or, hidden beneath, truth to them is that they hide that they want to make you proud at all cost.
Mm-hmm.
And so anytime, I get to break down with an athlete, they go, I just don't let my parents down. I just don't want, they put so much money in it. They did so much time. They notice it. They may not act like they notice it, but they notice it. So they put this pressure on themselves. Like if I'm not the best or if I'm not doing something that they're proud of or they're complaining, I'm doing them a disservice. And I think that's the biggest pressure, that they know how much money you're spending. They know how much time. If you have multiple kids in the family, they know it's taking away from a sibling. They realize that. And because of that, they add that extra pressure to themselves.
Yeah. I mean, but, back when you went D1 and were in college, it didn't look anything like it does nowadays when these kids are in college, and you've kind of had a front row seat. So how has youth sports culture changed over the years? And we're talking an accelerated pace, even in the last 5 years, just with NIL and everything else. And so what's that change look like to you? Kind of how has it changed to you?
As social media has changed, the game has changed, and now we added money, right? Once we could figure we can pay the players, the game changed forever. Even just eligibility, COVID changed. We cannot dismiss COVID. COVID changed the trajectory of a lot for these young people, because once the NCAA tried to start making up for years missed and COVID and adding years, now we threw off the clocks. Oh, yeah. And then once the NCAA saw, I gave these older players one more year, then they realized, the college game is a little bit more competitive. More people are watching it. Let me just pay them now. And now we really, actually, I like this. This is like our own little G League. This is like, let's pay them some more. And now we can have a mini NBA. Once that started happening, the game started changing. It in turn trickled down the grassroots, and that started changing, because now the younger parents, the younger players are trying to keep up with what's happening. Like, I don't want to rush them into high school or rush them into college because they're not going to play or they're not 25. So I'm going to reclass them. And then that trend pushed reclassification. So all of the things that you're seeing now that are popular in the trends, it stemmed from social media and money. It really pushed it.
Yeah. And I think social media is changing athlete identity, right? So if you look at it just from the athletic side of things, like I got to get up to my 2,000, 2,500 followers, so I'm NIL eligible and I can start getting money that way. But at the same time, it's going to impact kind of academically, right? Because now I want to keep up with social media. I have a bigger distraction sitting right here in my hand. And so, you sit at that intersection of athletics and academics. And so how are you seeing social media kind of play a pivotal role in these dynamics?
It does. And what I have to do now is bring the parents back into the mode. What I do feel has happened in youth sports in general, the parent began to take a back seat. Now, the parent is not backseat in the fact that they're not paying or they're not screaming from the sidelines, they're not doing this, but they took a backseat in the decision making. Mm-hmm. Anytime, what I was seeing was parents pay for a youth league and say, the coach says, this is the coach. Mm-hmm. When did the coach have a bigger voice than your own? Mm-hmm. When did the coach tell you what you're doing with your kid? You picked your kid's school, you picked where they was going to go, all those things. All of a sudden in youth sports, the coach had a bigger voice. And so I started flipping that, giving the parents a bigger voice, because when a parent has a role in the child's, elevation and how they're going to use social media, guess what? They can share the load of managing that social media. No kid today that is on the trajectory to be an elite student athlete is managing their social media by themselves.
Right.
We can't because it's NIL, it's branding involved. Parents got to preview everything. Like, what if they accidentally like something? So parents should be involved. And I think that's where I'm seeing the trend and parents getting back in line with their student athletes and being involved, which helps take some of that pressure off of them to post and do all that stuff because the parent can help them.
Yeah. And I think you're seeing this interesting dynamic of visibility before development, right? I can clip up a highlight clip of my kid playing and post it, and they look like the next all-star. When if I go back, and coaches will go back and play athletes, I want you to know, coaches will go back and look at that full game film. And when your team got beat by 30 and you had a couple really good highlights, those highlights don't look the way you think they look to coaches. Yeah. And so that's kind of changed the game right now, right? Because we're in a social media era, right? Where everybody wants to post that clip.
The older we get, the more smarter the colleges get and the staff. Then they're hip to the game now. So there was a season where social media highlights was getting kids offers and rankings. Now it's not. They want the full game. But now everything's streamed. So it doesn't matter if you clip it, they're gonna find it anyway, or they're gonna watch the live stream. So it's a little bit more balanced in that way. And they really even don't want to click on a highlight. Yes, and then they also have coaches that only do social media. Like their only job is to follow you on social media. If you're a recruit, they're checking what you like, what you repost, how you post, and what you're doing. Because if they're that coach, they can help with the NIL deals. And on the flip side, if you're doing something wrong, they're gonna tell before you even in the recruitment, at the end of the stage. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's part of why you see the shift, right? Because if I'm a college coach, I would rather coach 22, 23, 24, because I'm going to get more maturity. I'm going to get more life experience. That's going to be an easier player in some sense to coach than bringing that 18-year-old kid out of high school in. And I got to teach them how to not be that teenager, that high school kid anymore. This is what college is. This is how it moves. But some of these guys, they're going over playing pro and then coming back over here and playing. And I'm like, I'm sure there's some benefit to coaches in that, right? There's less that I got to deal with in some sense. It's hit or miss, but I'm sure there's some balance there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they enjoy it to an extent until you realize you're talking to a grown man talking to a grown man. When their kids are in the stands and their wife is in the stands or their fiance or there's somebody's in the stands too. Or when an assistant coach is talking to a man that's making more money than them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. that's a different ballgame. And that's why, that's why back in the day, you had some guys that just wanted to coach college because they didn't want to deal with the athletes that were making money with everything else that came with them. And now those guys are trickling into college. And so that money piece plays a significant role. And so from your perspective, what kind of unhealthy mindsets are developing around the NIL? How are people looking at that in a way that's not necessarily beneficial?
They're thinking it is so tangible. What I think social media did for a lot of people is change the mindset that scholarships are even more tangible and that money, NIL, is more tangible. No. The percentages are still small. It's still a small elite group of people who are grabbing this. Yes, is it spread out a little bit more? Yes, because you can get some brand deals, right? You can get some free gear, you can get some protein, you can get some this. But there's still a small percentage, and those are your elite student athletes that go into the Power Fives that are making this buku big time money. But social media have you thinking, hey, as long as my kid does this, and this, they're gonna get it. They're gonna get an NIL deal. Not necessarily.
Yeah, no, I mean, because you have unicorns, right? So we're in here in the state of Maryland. We see what just happened with Baba going, and a lot of young kids have known and seen him and everything else. And I was sitting in the AAU practice with a bunch of kids, and I was talking to the dads, and I was like, hey, look, these aren't the unicorns. This is the vast majority of AAU practices and teams, right?
Yep.
These aren't the unicorns on this floor. Those unicorns on other courts practicing. These kids, it's not the same setup, but I think everybody is able to even sometimes delude themselves into believing, no, my kid's going to be the one.
Yeah, we can get it. We're going to figure this out.
Yeah, your kid can shoot the rock, but he's going to max out at 5'11" and can't defend.
When's the last time you seen a 5'11" person in the league?
Right. Yeah, your kid is great. He's all state. He's in one of the big name schools, but he's still 6 feet. Point guards now, 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". Like
on the shorter end.
Back in the day, years ago, in that Chris Paul era, that kid might have been, but now the profiles changed, the body types changed.
Because you're bringing on in pros from across the country who come in at 6'7", 6'8", dribble and point guard. Like Pros are still part of the game. They can come over here. They can do that. They can play. They can go to our colleges. It's everything. Yep.
There can be a lot of pressure on academics as well, right? Because a lot of these athletes, they're not going to be going to school just for athletics. That academics piece is big. And so that GPA, right, is big. A 2.8 opens up opportunities that are going to be less than a 3.8 or 3.2. And so talk to me about the role of academics, because that sits in the middle of this conversation. We could talk about NIL all day. For the vast majority of athletes, whether you're a unicorn or you're a regular kid, those academics can open some doors for you too that most people aren't thinking about as a priority.
Yeah, and I always, to this day, I don't understand why, but hey, here I am. I'm going to beat a dead horse, right? Because it's such a small percentage of those who are going to be your top cream of the top, who are going to end up being in the NBA or the WNBA or whatever sport pro, everybody else is going to get a degree, or you should be aiming to. So therefore, you need to be contending academically for those scholarships. There are merit money. There is so much more money in the academic world than there is athletic. I don't understand. You are 3 to 4 times more likely to get merit money than you are athletic on any day. So why would I keep chasing something I'm only 1 time more likely to get? I would do academics. And now the way college is set up, there's no more national letter of intent. It's a scholarship aid agreement. So scholarship aid agreement means I take some of that merit money, I take some of your financial aid, then I throw in some of your athletic and see. Now, if you're a coach who has cap size and has a limit and doesn't have as many spots, but I know I don't have to pay for this kid because they're smart. Mm-hmm. They're going to go to school. They're going to get a lot of academic money and they're going to have financial. Guess what? Now your recruitment went up. So even if I had 2 kids that were 6'4", but this kid is going to get some academic money and this kid needs all of my athletic budget, guess what they're going to go with?
And if I got to worry about you being academically eligible, like that's still a big thing. I can't bring you in here because of the way that it's set up. And coaching longevity is impacted by NIL, right? Because if you don't coach well and your school needs to win, they're going to bring in somebody else that could bring in the athletes and everything else to get those victories. Well, I can't bring in a group of kids and I'm not certain if they're going to be able to stay on the field because their academics aren't where they need to be. And that's a message for these high school kids, because I've seen it. I've seen a kid this past season that didn't get nearly the playing time that he anticipated getting because his coach was like, your grades aren't where they need to be. I can't play you the same way because I have to worry about your overall development. If I'm just worrying about wins, you're going to start full time. But if I'm worrying about you being able to get to college and play at that next level, I got to let the bench teach you a lesson that I can't tell you. Right. And so you're seeing it show up there as well. And so you have athletics, you have academics, and in the space that we're in and where we talk about on this podcast, then you have mental health. Right. And that's a factor and component that I think, unfortunately, is lagging way behind the resources that are available. You can go out and get trainers and you put your kids with trainers all day long to get them work. Right. OK, grades are important and everybody long standing history of grades being important. Right. So let's do that. But that mental health piece, that's the one that still has a stigma around it. How difficult is it for athletes to separate who they are from what they do? And how do you see them getting lost in that mix?
Yeah, and I see it a lot. And I think that's when the role of the parent is so key. And you making sure your kid understands you could drop this sport tomorrow and you're still going to be great. You could do this, giving them opportunities to do other things. When I work with families, I do a holistic approach. You're not just going to come to me and get a basketball player and academic plan. You're going to get, okay, so what are we doing for the mental health? What else do they like to do? I had a student this year who's going to end up going to a really great prep school. He learned to play the guitar this year. And guess what? He's most proud of that. All he wants to talk to me about guitar. Now, he plays basketball very well. But now we talk about something else because they don't only want to talk about their sport. They want to talk about other stuff. They want to talk about their hair and their haircuts and all this other stuff. But you have to give them, open those doors. And it's better now. I will say this because people are talking about it. And there are major programs putting mental health in as a part of their programming. And colleges do have sports psychologists assigned to the team and mental health. Even NCAA has clauses and things for mental health. But you still have a little bit of it still left because no one wants to talk about it. You don't want to look like the weakling or you don't want to look like you're making excuses and things of that nature. So it starts young and you have to really lean into your kid. Hey, you're amazing if you don't play this. You're amazing if you don't do this. Because if they get injured, then they feel like, oh, I have nothing left. No, you do. You have school, you have this, you have that.
Yeah. And so I'm sure you've seen it, right? I'm sure you've had your fair amount of success cases, right? But I'm sure you've also seen those kids that didn't hit the mark, right? And realize that I don't have enough credits in the major courses that I needed to take. And now I'm sitting here and that scholarship or that opportunity I was about to have is gone because my academics are messed up. And now what do I do? Like, I can't, I'm not playing ball, right? And so talk to me about that. I'm sure you've seen those stories where the academics are going to be the thing that stops short that playing career or that's going to significantly impact it in a negative way.
I've seen it all too much, right? As much as you see my success stories, to sadly enough, I have enough of people that got to me too late or who just didn't know or who in the last, even this week alone, I've found 3 cases where kids are half a credit short, not a full credit, a half a credit off of something that somebody could have told them, you should do this or you should do that. And having that conversation with families is often, it's sad because you hear the parent like, well, who was supposed to tell me that? Or why didn't I know? Or who's at fault? It doesn't matter who we blame. The kid is done at this point, right? Like, so now what is the plan going forward? And getting that kid back is just as important as getting the parent back. The parent will be just as defeated as the kid. So I'll be like, your identity was tied in this too. This is why. Yep. And so then we have to work ourselves back and say, hey, if you still want to play the sport, hey, it's not D1, but let's see if we can go D2. If it's not D2, let's see if you can go NAIA or junior college. We go the gamut of those ideas, but I have to remind them, you're not just a sport. Yeah. And what happened is you put that before taking care of business and checking on everything.
Yeah. And so you speak to it, right? That parent's identity can be tied up into that, right? I know that I can find myself talking about my kids and their athletic because I'll spend the weekend at a tournament and everything else. So what'd you do this week? I was at a tournament. Can you believe these kids lost by 20? So I think that parent identity can be wrapped up in it. And you talk to the fact that these kids, even though they don't say it, they realize the expense, the time, the investment of the parents. And so outside of that, do you see parents unintentionally adding pressure? When does that support become pressure?
Oh, the moment they start, the kid is not deaf. They may have headphones on in the car, but they hear you screaming about the weekend pass as $100. They hear you saying, and you want me to pay for all this and you ain't doing this. You ain't even clean your room. Now, I believe, I got kids. I want them to clean. I want them to do chores, but let's all take a moment. Mm-hmm. They're not doing what regular kids are doing. So if they drove, just like you're tired, they're tired. Then they played, and then they had played 3 games. They had to do this. Yes, so their room is going to be a little messy because y'all left straight out, running out of the house on Friday to get on the road so you didn't get traffic. Then you didn't let them sleep because you got to get on the road early, straight after the game on Sunday. Then you expect them to go to school. But when you walk straight in the house, you got laundry to do. You got this. They're just as exhausted.
Yeah.
So understanding that we have to take a moment and realize if we're going to do this elite journey, I say this all the time and people are like, wow, that makes sense. Elite student athletes have elite parents. We all have committed to give up something. So then we all have to shift. We're going to do it. So an elite kid that's playing a student athlete that's on the trajectory, their chores are going to look different. I'm sorry. You talked about my mom. I had chores, but I didn't have similar chores in certain seasons. Like I didn't have stuff every night because I had to get to bed and I had a tournament. I had this. So I had to take care of other things that I learned how to do, which like type up my mom's notes and do emails and do this. This is why I was so advanced. But that was a chore. She said, I can take care of the dishes and the laundry. I'll put it on your bed. You can put it back. But I know you have certain things to do. So as a parent, what are you going to do and switch? If you're trying to make them live the standard life, you're setting them up and you're giving them pressure in a world you said you want them to be elite. It cannot be the same. You can't have...
And so you said elite athletes have elite parents. If you could build the perfect parent, the elite parent, what would you say helps to make a parent elite? And parents, if you listen to this, nobody's going to be perfect. So you might not match up to every single one of these, but I want to know kind of what those areas are so we can be mindful of them and strive to work towards them. So what would an elite parent bring to the table for an elite athlete?
And I love that you said no one's going to be perfect because it's going to look different for everybody. But number one, You are the parent. Elite parent number one can play both roles. I'm going to hold you accountable, but I'm also going to love you, right? I'm going to know when you need mom, and I'm going to know when you need coach. Or dad, I'm going to know when you need dad, and I'm going to know when you need coach. I'm going to love you through it. I'm still going to make you navigate your social emotional because you're having hormones and you're growing in biology. And then I'm going to know when I'm tired, when my battery's low, and when my this. I met a couple who I esteem, and I really believe they're elite parents because I've watched them put kids in college. I watched, and I'm their work, and they have businesses. And you know what? They tell each other, "Oh, honey, my battery's at 30%." The kid be like, "Mom, I'm at 50%." They talk in battery. So when that means their energy is low or when it's high, they can do it. And this double down, an elite coach told me he did this with his wife, and that's how they run their family. So you have to be able to communicate with your family when you're not at your best so everyone can be on the same page. Additionally, I think super parents are, listen, I'm going to think a few steps for it. I'm not going to do everything for you, but I am going to do some things for you, right? So I'm going to lead you to water, but I know I got to drive because you don't know where the water is. I'm going to give you the scooper, but you're going to scoop it up. So yes, they're going to need some help along the way. You can't take the reins off altogether and be like, no, they need to grow up, but they need to do this. You have to meet them where they're. Elite parents listen to their kids. And then I think another thing is they check in outside of their sport. I'm not going to just talk to you about what you did on the court or what you did in the field or what you did. I'm going to talk to you, how are you feeling? I'm also going to pencil in some type of balance on every time we're doing something. That means we're having mommy and daughter time, mommy and son time, daddy and this, and it has nothing to do with that. We're going to lunch. I saw a parent pick a kid up from school. The kid walked out, had an attitude, had a horrible game the night before. The parent said, I'm coming to pick the kid up for lunch, called the school. Came pick the kid up. He said, I don't want it. He just screamed. He chewed me out all night, yo. He chewed me out. Like, I'm wasting my talent. I'm paying, And he came and picked him up and he apologized. And he said, number one, you should have been in bed. I'm going to hold you accountable. I didn't have to do that. I wouldn't do that to a coach. I give them 48 hours. That's the same thing. Give your kids some space. You give a coach 48 hours, give them 24. Maybe not 48. They live in your house. But right. 24 hours to get themselves together and watch when you're chewing them out. Because maybe it's you that's frustrated, not them. They were frustrated in their own self. And then when he went to lunch, he told us that. I was frustrated by my own self because I couldn't hit the shot. But then hearing you made me feel worse and I couldn't do this. But you know what that did? He came back to school from that lunch like, y'all had a great lunch with my dad. And then the next game, now I get to listen to my dad. Now I get to do that. And that's elite things right there because you're doing things different to help your kid explain themselves. You're navigating it, but you're also being dad and, mom when you need to, and you're holding them accountable. You can't just play one role. You got to be flexible in this world.
What role should parents play in protecting mental wellness, right? So you talked about the parent recovering from the poor kind of performance with the kid the night before and everything else and take them to lunch. And so how can parents, from your perspective, protect the mental wellness of the kids, of the athletes?
Yeah. Have a code, have a language with your kid. I love when I work with pro families. And I get to the other side. I'm so blessed to be able to do that. But they have a language with their son or daughter. And I'm like, who knew y'all had this own thing? Like, they got codes that they do. Have something. Because then it's like, they don't have to speak it, but they know, mom knows, oh, something's wrong. Because number one, if the coaches are crazy these days. And a lot of them are not qualified. And they speak to your children any old type of way. There's been some games I've got up and left. Because I'm not going to watch this. It's poor coaching and it's coaches screaming at 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, like they're grown men with crazy language. And so number one, don't put your kid in that environment. I don't care what the program is, who it is, it's not worth it. Number two, you're not going to hear everything because in the locker room, you can't hear. You have to have a code that you can communicate or some type of language that you can communicate. And the first thing out of your mouth, and I learned this from a mental health coach after a game, is I love seeing you play. And we can go. Because even I had to implement this. I have a host son, and when he used to play, I used to be like, I love seeing you play. And he'd be like, all right, cool, give it to me. But I earned it.
Yeah.
Earned that right to give it to it. So sandwich that, right? If I give you that love, they're gonna want your accountability at some point, and now you know you're in. And I think it's your role to protect them. If they're in a position where they're getting beaten down and you see them downtrodden and then you see them coming out of practice with their head held and they're like a parent said to me today, I had to get my kid out. And Shanay, you have shown me that he can do A, B, C, and D. Like she was almost in tears today because this kid is like basically an honor roll student top. And he came from a position where he was being labeled a bad kid and this and that. And I was like, take him out of school. And we shift that. And now this kid is an honor roll student. Like you got to protect your kid by all costs because that's your kid. And that mental health is so key. And when people label and throw garbage and negative words at your kid, you gotta be able to be that protector. Like you're not about to do that.
Yeah. No, I think it's what gets lost is that being a parent should be the most significant relationship that a kid has growing up. And what happens is that relationship turns from parent-child to employer-employee.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm investing this money, I want to see a return on my investment now, right? Because I'm spending this time because my battery's drained and my whole evening has been about getting you to and from and everything else. My weekend is gone. I haven't had a free weekend and all this. And so I need you to what? Perform versus I need you to be a kid. Right. I was looking at one of the best point guards in this area, watching them play and everything else. And then we were in practice and they played a game of shirts versus skins. And me and the other coach was like, sometimes with the way they play, you still forget they're 15, 16 years old. They're still babies. They don't even have a chest yet. Not one of them running up and down that court. They would swear all day long.
All young looking.
One of them, but they're still babies. And sometimes that can get lost because the way they play is so mature and advanced and at a high level that people can see them as, and especially when you get into some of these big kids, 6'8", 6'9", 200 pounds, you can see them as full-blown adults, but they still, they still got braces on.
Braces, and they say baby milk on the breath. And, you know, as a school counselor, I work in a high school. So I have the awesome ability to be around kids. And I tell parents all the time, yes, I speak teenager. That was the gift God gave me. But I will stand on a chair and talk to my 7-footer. Look at me. What's wrong? What's going on? And I will hold them accountable, but I have to remember they're still a kid. Yeah. And we often want to push them grow. This is the thing. Parents be like, you got to do this. Act your age. I'm sorry. They are.
Yeah.
They are. Yeah. And I'm on these major circuits, EYBL. I was just, DMV had a huge, session the other night, in the area. Of course, I went over there and I'm just looking. And many of the kids that play, I've known them since they were 7th, 8th grade, and I'm starting to see them mature, but they still look young. And but they're a little bit mature because they've been on the circuit a little longer. But I'm like, there are agents in the crowd. There are NBA players in the crowd. There's this. And they have to be able to carry themselves and be ready to hold that. And that's hard. So they're not going to get it right. But one thing I do see is when those players, the ones that are ranked high in this, their parents, they're no longer screaming on the sidelines like maniacs. They're looking at their kid. So when their kid looks off the court, and they don't do this, and I saw it 5 times this weekend. I'm telling you, these kids have ranked in the top 5, and I saw it. A mom went, well, dad went. They're not screaming. The other went. They figured this joint out. They figured it out because they tried to scream in the pro. They tried this, and now they're at this age where, listen, there's people in this crowd, this and that. I'm gonna be mom today. I'm gonna be dad in this moment. After the game, we could chat it up. But it's a lot of, hey, you okay? Yeah. Hey, shake it off. You see, okay.
Yeah. No,
they're all doing baseball signs at this point.
Absolutely. Oh, I go into super parent mode if they go down with looks like they got an injury or something, and they go over to the trainer, then they go over to the bench and they sit down. I tell them, hey, look, you got to look up at me and give me a thumbs up, or I'm going to walk across that court to come check on you. Just let me know you good, because daddy can't sit in these stands real calm when his baby might have just been hurt on the court. You gotta let me know.
No, but here's the thing. Set expectations. Don't we set expectations at jobs?
Yeah.
Don't we set How come we don't set expectations all the time with our kids? We
Yeah.
set them sometimes, but set them in the game. Set them when we're going to a tournament. Hey, we're going away for three things. Let's just sit down. I want to set these expectations. I am not going to be stopping at every Chick-fil-A. I'm going to be doing this, but I will get you a smoothie in the middle of the game. I will get you this.
Yep.
And then when you're in the games, my expectation, I'm not going to talk to the coach. I'm not going to scream. This is my promise to you. But if something's wrong, you're going to let me know. Anything I should add? Like, that's an open conversation. I don't care what age they are. I do this with my 7 and 4-year-olds because I need to set expectations. When we go to the store, I'm not buying you nothing. When we get home, you will eat. We have to do that in sports as well.
Yeah. And so, we got to have a reclass conversation, right? Because you've seen a fair share of them. You help families navigate that. And there's some insanity that goes on, right? The double reclass, and part of it is like, you 2 years older than the kids you beating up on. Everybody knows that, like, I grew up in a generation where I want to play the older kids. I don't want to go back and play the younger kids. Playing kids 2 years younger than me, I don't want to do that, right? And so now you have these kids that are reclassing. They're reclassing the wrong way. They're reclassing with the wrong intentions, the wrong work ethic, the wrong focus, right? They're reclassing and then going to a private school where they got 5 hours of homework a night, right? And so talk to me kind of about what you're seeing in this reclass area and how it's impacting development, mindset, parenting. Let's have that reclass conversation.
I don't know how many times I got to say it. Reclassification is not for everybody. I really don't feel. There are some incidents when I've heard stories, I'm like, oh, wow, you went through all that in 1 year? Yeah, you might want to do it. And and I mean extenuating. I mean cancer scares. I mean death in the family. I mean, you moved and your father went away to war and then you were here. Like, there are extreme cases. Then there's some reclasses because people say, oh, well, who should? That's one. Number two, there are some that I think have really early birthdays and you thought you were doing the best thing. Back in the day, all the parents put their kids in grades earlier, even skipped them. It was cute. Let me skip them, but you didn't think they were going to become an athlete. And so I met a 16-year-old that was a junior. I mean, no, he was 15 as a junior. And I was like, I got 8th graders your age. And the mom was like, but he really wants to play basketball now. What do we do? And so then we can navigate that because academically he's sound. Oh, now we're going to get 2 degrees, right? Mm-hmm. So I can set you up. So we get 2 degrees on the back end because he's so smart. But then the people that are doing it wrong, I'm just following a trend. I'm not checking any state rules. I'm throwing them in a private school that I didn't vet, that did this, because they couldn't do it. But they're like, now you got to do double the work, double the time. You was getting home at 6. Now you're getting home at 10. Mm-hmm. Because now they play really national schedules or they play at 7 p.m., even if they don't play a national schedule, and you didn't check out what is best for you. The biggest thing is you have to do what's best for your child. I tell parents all the time, you know your own human. Mm-hmm. Some people can do homeschool. Some people can do hybrid school. Some people can do sports academy. But if you reclass, it should advance. Your academics should advance. Your game should advance. Your training should advance. If you're going to do the same thing you did in this year, there's no purpose in your reclass. Everything you do in the following year must be different, or there's no purpose. And then if you think you're going to grow 12 inches in a year, I want to know what biology class you took in anatomy. You're not, I'm doing it for height.
Right.
You don't grow that big in 1 year. Like, you only have 12 months, not 3 years, So it's little things like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's important. And so that leads nicely into your work with Spark and the Bridge Year program that you're doing. So not everybody's going to be familiar, not everybody's going to be local. So tell me about Spark, the Bridge Year program, kind of the intentions behind it and kind of what you're seeing so far.
Yeah, Spark is a performance-based facility in Maryland here. And what I'm doing, and I came alongside with them, and they have a sport, they do basketball training, but they do some mobility and speed training for football players, boxers, you name it. But we're coming together, partnering where they're going to run the mobility and the basketball training. I'm going to run the academics to provide an option for students who, number one, still want to get their academics done, but then want to grow their speed, their body, maturity, and do skill training during the day. right? But at a high rate. Spark is home to a lot of pro athletes. They come and work out there. A lot of high caliber Division I players, high caliber players of the area. So you're training with top tier people, and it's accelerating your game. But you get to work on that during the day. So it's just like a school day, but you get to be done by 3:30. And you can go to whatever you need to do, but you have recovery, all that's built in the day. And so it's a performance-based program that offers this ability to do that while you're still getting your academics done.
Okay, nice. And for what age group is it targeting?
Well, the heavy target is middle school, but there will be some high schools in it, right? There's some early ninth graders that come, and some 10th graders, and there are kids that already been homeschooled. So now it's like, I'm homeschooled already, but I love to add this performance to my I love to lift. I love to do that.
Right.
So,
no, absolutely. That's great.
But middle school is where we're targeting. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I saw the project announced. I know Darren. I know you. I was like, oh, this is gonna be good. So I'm excited about kind of what that's gonna look like. So Shanay, we're gonna have that big conversation now. The real big conversation now. NCAA eligibility changes. I know that there's a lot going on. There's a lot of conversations. It looks like they're inching closer to some conclusions. The devil is always in the details, right? And so what are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you getting ready to potentially be preparing the athletes that you work with for?
So everyone is really hitting on this 5 for 5, or this age-based eligibility rule. But what I think, you said that the devil's in the details, right? Everything is details. People have to understand there's a lot of loopholes to every rule that's put out there. And there's going to be some escape clauses. There's going to be some things, because what if about a student who went the trajectory of all his years and started at kindergarten at a certain age and went all the way through and ends up being 19 and, before senior year, but they never reclass. It's not just a reclass rule. It's also, for me, I don't think it's a reclass room, because all it does is make you have to be more strategic. Most of the kids that I work with that do it right, or who are thinking about reclassing, it's never going to affect them, because they're not going to be 19, because they usually reclass back up. So, everyone's like, oh no, this is going to kill reclass. I was like, maybe to kill the double reclass, which never should have existed in the first place. I don't even know where that came from, but that's another conversation for another day. So we're looking at this age-based eligibility rule, and 19 being the start, or high school graduation, whichever comes sooner. But what that says to me is, if I have a kid that's young and I know they're going to graduate high school at 17, I got to figure out what the heck I'm going to do with them, because now they have a disadvantage. Their clock starts at 17 when a person their clock is going to start at 19. You see all these if you really think this through, what 17-year-old do you see at college? Because the average age on college roster is 23 and a half. So now I have to put my kid in postgrad. But if I put my kid in postgrad after 17 now, they're losing a year of eligibility? How's that fair? They're already 18. So yes, I see the talks. It has been pushed to the cabinet for May 22nd, but there's right now, as of yesterday, I saw a petition going around. Like, don't do this to this class again. Don't forget about the class. There's always going to be people that complain. So they gotta go through their due diligence. They're putting it out. There will be some changes. However, I don't think it's going to be as drastic as everyone's making it out to be. And if there is, my biggest thing says, always make a plan. It's not going to be the end of the world, but you're going to have to be quite strategic if you have a younger kid or an older kid. You really got to figure out what you're going to do on that back end.
Yeah, it sounds like, and this is my cursory reading, I'm sure you've read more kind of the details. It sounds like part of what it's aiming to do is to stop the 26 and 27-year-olds that have been playing college ball, and kind of bring that back into calibration a little bit to create more opportunity. It sounds like part of what's in the intention, but I mean, unfortunately, I don't ever believe that, those large governing bodies are genuinely looking at what's best for the athletes themselves. But that sounds like what they're trying to tackle.
Yeah, it sounds like it, but that doesn't stop the 22 and the 23-year-olds and the 24. When I was 21 and 22, we were out at 21, I was still in college, but 22, I was out. They still in. They still in there 24, 25. Yeah, it stopped at 26 and 27 years. So less pro players can come back and do it. But, they're trying, but I don't see it. It's too much money. There's too much TV rights. There's
Yeah.
too much brands now involved. Might as well be the NBA at this point.
Yeah.
So, and the NBA is, I don't even know, NBA Plus at this point.
Right.
It is a paid league, a professional league. It's supposed to be amateur, a professional league that's not trying to lose money anytime soon.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely understand that. And with the ratings and you looking at what Michigan did this year with some older players and they just kind of re-up with more players, like the number of people that tuned in to watch that game, the dollars and the revenue that was there, like who are we to say no to this, right? And so I think it's an ongoing conversation. I think it's a good conversation, but I think the biggest thing is, as with anything, you have to pay close attention, know the details, know the ins and outs. And I think, unfortunately, you would actually be able to speak to this. I think there's a large number of parents and athletes that are underinformed and underprepared.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to prepare yourself for this time period. There's no more, I'm just going to just hope for the best. Hope is not a plan. I've read that somewhere. Hope is not a plan. We have to be strategic. And I'm a woman of faith, I believe, but faith without works is dead, right? So you have to do your due diligence. You have to educate yourself. There's no more just going into that, because hypothetically, if your kid is a top tier player, literally overnight, they can become millionaires. It's more tangible for these young babies to become quarter of a millionaires in a year, just if they get into a Power 5 school. Have you taught them money management? Have you talked to them about what you do with your money? All of these things have to be discovered, and you have to build a team. I do some great work with the Black sports moms, and they do a great job of saying, who's going to be in your team? You got to have your people. You got to have a lawyer. You got to have who's going to be the agent. If you're going to be an agent, who's going to be your academic specialist? Who's going to be your mental health coach? Who's part of your team? Who are your people you can trust or you can call on to ask them these questions? Because this is the nature of sports.
Yeah. And so, if you could redefine success for the next generation, what would that look like? What should we really be prioritizing?
Success is really in the eye of the beholder. What does success look like in your family? Because for me, in my family, if it's my kid gets a college degree. My host son played 2 different universities, transferred, but he got 2 degrees. Success. Is he playing overseas? No. Did he have an opportunity? Yes. Did he have a job out of college? Yes. Did he have a computer science degree? Yes. That looks like success to me. Someone else would say, oh, that's not success. He's 6'10". He should be doing this. No, that looks success to me. He's standing on his mind is right. Mentally, he's great. He can carry himself. That's what success. So I think parents need to prioritize what is going to be best for your kid in the long run. What does that look like? Do you want them to have a great experience, or do you want them just to make money? Because money, to me, just making money, is that really success?
Right. Right.
It's another pressure.
Yeah. And so kind of what you're saying is, because it is that top 1% that becomes that pro athlete and gets that payday, right? And the vast majority of these kids are not going to hit that top 1%. But 100% of these kids, Lord willing, are going to grow up to be full-blown adults. Exactly. And are they prepared to be that? And part of the problem is they have this hyper focus in adolescence and in college on being an athlete, but being an athlete is different from being an adult. Because part of what you don't navigate stuff, right? It's hard to have a full-time job if you're a full-time athlete, right? With training and everything else, it's hard to get out there. So now when you have a job, you're learning how to do that in a new space. Some of what comes with athletics prepares folks to be adults, but it is that resiliency, that identity, the mental wellness that comes along with that, right? When that career ends, do they take the time to grieve that career ending, right? There's so much more packed into what should be defined as success, because if success is top 1%, most of us ain't gonna make it.
Yeah.
It's just the reality of the sport, right? If you say top 1% billionaires in the US, hey, I can look around and say most of the folks that I know ain't going to get to that top 1%. So what does success look like? And so it really is, like you said, redefining what success is. And I think for most parents, they would tell you, for my kid to be happy, physically healthy, mentally healthy, able to take care of themselves, take care of a family. But some of that gets lost because we see a shortcut. Well, money's going to make all that easier. I know a lot of folks with money that aren't that much happier. I know a lot of folks with money that aren't mentally well. I know a lot of folks with money that aren't physically healthy. And so what is the success, and really defining that as a family with your kid and laying out what that is and what that means.
And keeping the why at hand, right? Once you define that, reminding them, hey, we know what success is. We know what this why is. We know why we're doing this. And keeping that at the forefront. And I think that's how you keep the pressure to a minimum, right? It's still going to be there. It's always going to be there. But you keep it when you keep things aligned into what it truly means to be successful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And so kind of you see probably a lot of high school and college, and we'll kind of wrap up with this. What do athletes need to understand earlier than they do now? What are those things that the younger athletes need to get, that the parents who have a young athlete, what do they need to understand earlier?
Build habits. It is important to build habits early. If they automatically, and I can use the simplest thing, when they're younger, they're sponges, right? If you want them to learn the language, you try to give it to them right away. You try to do this. Build the habits. If they see you on the go, and we just grab food on the road and then we just eating fast food all the time, guess what they're going to do when they're older? They're going to do the same thing. I'm using that as an example, but it's the same thing in life. If they don't see you plan, they won't plan. If they don't see you strategically sit down and say, hey, let's map out these things, they're not going to strategically plan and map out. And oftentimes, by the time they're even in middle school, habits are set. Now you're frustrated with the teenager. That's what my parents, all my parents that talk to me, oh, my teenager's not listening to me. You built that. You built that because they watched you. They're just showing you yourself. And so you built this, and this is why they're giving it. When they're younger, build those habits. It is all about fundamentals when it's younger too. Build the fundamentals, because when it's middle school and higher, guess what? You're not going to have as much time. The higher you go up, the less time you have. So develop at an early age and build habits.
Well, Shanay, thank you so much for joining us on Beyond the Game today. This has been great. You are going to be a return guest because we're going to have to get you back on because there's so much knowledge. And this landscape is ever changing and evolving, right? I fully believe that the athletic and academic landscape 5 years from now is going to be much different than what it is right now. It's going to be a completely different animal. But thank you so much for your time. Great to have you as a guest. And I'm looking forward to more to come. Thank you so much. Before we conclude, some takeaways. For athletes, your identity has to be bigger than your sport. Shanay repeatedly emphasized that athletes need hobbies, interests, balance, and purpose outside of their sport. When identity becomes completely tied to performance, rankings, or offers, emotional stability becomes fragile. Build habits early. Talent opens doors. Habits keep them open. Shanay stressed that discipline, planning, preparation, and consistency are built long before high school. Social media is not development. Visibility is not the same thing as growth. Highlight clips, followers, and rankings create false confidence if real work is not happening behind the scenes. Academics still matter more than most athletes realize. There is significantly more academic money available than athletic money. Athletes who ignore academics limit their opportunities before the recruiting process even begins. You are still a kid, even in elite environments. Shanay reminded parents and coaches that these athletes may look mature physically, but emotionally, they are still developing. For parents, elite athletes usually have elite parents behind them. Not perfect parents, present parents, intentional parents, parents who communicate, listen, adapt, and understand that emotional demands that their children are carrying. Support can unintentionally become pressure. Kids notice the sacrifices, the money, the travel, the stress, even if they never say it out loud. Many athletes carry pressure simply because they do not want to disappoint their parents. Your child needs a parent more than a manager. Shanay highlighted the danger of relationships shifting from parent-child to employer-employee. Athletes still need emotional safety at home. Protect your child emotionally, not just athletically. Not every coach environment or program is healthy. Parents have to know when a situation is harming their child's confidence, identity, or mental wellness. Success should be defined by the family, not social media. A fulfilled, educated, mentally healthy young adult is success, even if they never become a professional athlete. For coaches, these athletes are still kids. Shanay called out the culture of adults speaking to 12 to 15-year-olds like professionals. Coaches shape confidence, identity, and emotional development whether they realize it or not. Development is bigger than wins. The best coaches help athletes grow academically, emotionally, socially, and mentally, not just physically. Culture matters more than hype. Social media, rankings, and exposure may attract athletes initially, but healthy environments sustain development long-term. Athlete-parent relationship matters. Coaches should never replace the voice of the parent. Healthy programs strengthen family communication, not weaken it. What stands out in this conversation with Shanay Howard is how much pressure young athletes are carrying before they even become adults. Pressure to perform, pressure to be seen, pressure to get ranked, pressure to get offers, pressure to justify the money, travel, and sacrifice and the expectations around them. And what Shanay reminded us today is that behind all of that, there's still kids. Kids trying to figure out who they are. Kids trying to navigate identity. Kids trying to balance academics, sports, social media, expectations, and pressure all at the same time. And the reality is, the system's only getting more intense. According to the NCAA, fewer than 2% of high school athletes ever play Division I sports. And of the athletes who do make it to Division I basketball, only about 1.2% of men and 0.8% of women make it to the NBA or WNBA. Yet the pressure being placed on kids today often feels like every single game determines their future. That disconnect matters because research shows that elite athletes experience anxiety, depression, burnout, sleep disruption, and identity struggles at rates comparable to, or in the same cases higher than the general public. And when identity becomes completely tied to performance, rankings, scholarships, or NIL opportunities, what happens when the game changes? What happens when the offer never comes? What happens when the injury happens? What happens when the sport ends? That's why conversations like this matter. Because this isn't anti-sports. This is about making sure development stays human. For athletes, you are more than your rankings, your followers, your highlights, or your offers. For parents, your child needs support more than pressure. And for coaches, never forget that the way you speak to young athletes can shape how they see themselves long after the game is over. And maybe the biggest thing Shanay said today was this: success has to be defined by the family, not by social media, not by rankings, and not by outside expectations. Because if the only definition of success is going pro, most people will feel like they failed. But if success means becoming healthy, resilient, educated, emotionally grounded, and prepared for life, then the game can become something bigger than basketball. And that's what CLSI is really about. Closing the resilience gap between performance and well-being, helping athletes become not just better players, but healthier people. Thank you for joining this episode of Beyond the Game, where mental wellness competes. Make sure to follow CLSI on Instagram and TikTok at clsi.life. Share this episode. Engage with the movement. Together, we can close the resilience gap.